by the way, we're recording this fall of 2022, and there's this impending recession that's coming, and I have been preparing somewhat. So a couple of weeks ago, we lost one of our big clients. It was a six-figure plus client that ends in October. That hurt. This week, we found out that we're going to be basically getting from our other biggest client, a 40% revenue cut. So essentially, in a matter of a month, we've lost probably 35-40% of our company's overall revenue. I mean, for me, it's like, you freak out on the inside, and you got a role to play on the outside. At least that's the way I look at it. So, I play the CEO role. People have to believe that I'm steering the ship and I know what I'm doing. And then everybody wants to know, what's next, Dale? What are we going to do here? And they all look at me, and it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a weird sort of pressure. They look at me the way I want them to, which is like, we trust that you're going to figure this out. But then it's the same thing where I'm like, well, I think they trust that I'm going to figure this out, Let's jump into another episode of Dale and Grace Take Over the World. I just tried to get Grace to do some Meisner with me because we watched our first episode today. It was so bad.
So bad.
So awkward.
So bad.
And so I was like, we need some sort of pregame ritual. So I just started shouting tree at her, but she didn't get it. So
I thought it was a drug reference. I was lost. But tree.
Yeah, tree.
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 Oh God. For those who know. For those who don't know, Google it, I guess, so we don't look like a bunch of lunatics over here.
Repetition.
Yes, which I'm all about. Repetition is the key here. But basically, Meisner it's an acting technique. I'm no actor, of course, but I do like the concept. Although I think that if you're young, it probably messes with your head. But basically, you repeat this word over and over, and of course, as you repeat it enough times, the word itself loses all meaning, and it's just about learning how to be present, reading the person across from you, and so you can understand how to sort of interact with body language and other things, and I guess be present. So yeah, that's what at least I got from it. Go ahead.
I agree with that. I mean, I haven't really done Meisner work, but from what I hear. But I have a question. You said when you're young, it probably messes with your head, and I've heard that a lot. You said a lot of things probably mess with our head when we're young. What wouldn't mess with our head? What is good for the brain when you're young? Because I feel like...
What a question, Grace. Well, that's our special guest for the day. No, I'm joking. One day. You know what? Before we jump into this, one, the show's sponsored by Straight Shot Post, post-production company based out of Brooklyn, New York. Number two, this is the podcast Dale and Grace Take Over the World, a weekly podcast where Grace, my lovely executive assistant, and me, Frank Del Arroyo, CEO of Straight Shot Post, kind of recap our crazy week as we try to build this company, take over the world. We're trying to build sort of the next Pixar, sort of small but mighty, high standards, really consistent entertainment and education company. So stay tuned for more, but we tend to jump right into it. So I do think there's a lot of things that could mess us up when we're young. Mainly, in my opinion, I think that if you are teaching, I'm big on how are you being taught to learn? How are you being taught to make decisions? Mm-hmm. Like what drives your decision making, I think is a critical piece of the puzzle. So for example, if you're being taught to make your decisions based out of self-preservation, I think, well, that's okay. Everybody can do what they want, but okay, I think you kind of see where I'm going, right? Where like, okay, so if every risk that you took as a kid was stunted or hampered, if you were given if you never knew how to lose, right? That's what I mean. As you repeat things to the kid, that kid is going to obviously adapt for that. So if the kid never learns how to deal with adversity and then they go to college and they get slammed with adversity, I'm sure it's going to be trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you taught them how to go through adversity in ways that weren't as meaningful as getting fired from their first job, right, which has real stakes. Yeah, I'm no scientist or anything like that. I'm no neuroscientist. I think that there are a few things that we're not really taught, which is what drives our decision making. Like, how do you make a choice? How do you learn? what are your priorities and like values, right? So again, I think if you're taught as a kid to make your decisions based out of self-preservation, which is the normal pull, by the way. I did watch Andrew Huberman yesterday talk about how when you're trying to build a habit that, a lot of people talk about motivation, right? And positive motivation and positive reinforcement. But he basically was like, thing is, fear is a greater motivator. So it's actually going to be more impactful for you to meditate on what happens if you don't achieve the things that you're trying to achieve rather
Mm-hmm.
than like what will happen, right? And Tony Robbins, when I went to his thing, he does both. That's his like the thing. It's the Dickens approach, which is like spend the weekend focusing on who you want to be, have some sort of a clear vision of that, hopefully by the time you get to the climax of the weekend. And then you meditate pretty deeply and intensely on 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, visualizing what that would be if you achieved that thing, right? So there's your ghost of Christmas future or whatever. And then you go and you do that again. And instead of envisioning what happens if you get it, you envision what happens if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, was this the most crazy thing? It was one of the most wild things that I experienced because you're in an arena with 10,000 people going through it. And it is,
10,000?
dude, I don't know. At least there were definitely
Bro.
thousands of people there. Thousands of
That's not-
people. It was in the New Jersey arena.
I don't know what that is. The Izod?
I think so.
Oh, local. Okay.
I think so. I just remember, but the everybody's in agony. People are crying, bro. My dad was crying next to me. This dude to the right was like fucking shaking and screaming. It was wild, because people, that's how powerful it is. It's like that when you're that deep and realizing how painful your future could be. I'll tell you what, I just got angry. Anger is definitely an emotion that I keep close to the chest, but literally, I think like at some point I just saw black and I realized like this is gonna be too dark or whatever. I just realized that I was like, if you don't do it, if you don't achieve these things, there's no point. That's how like deep it got. I didn't realize that anger is where I go. Sadness for a lot of people, anger for me. And I think it's like the disappointment I'd have in myself for knowing what I'm capable of and not doing something with it really drove me mad. But it is true. That thing motivated me way more than like, oh, I can get girls. Cool.
There's also the learning theory. Do you know the learning theory of the punishments and the reinforcements?
I mean, it sounds like it's about incentives, right?
No. It's basically there's punishments and there's reinforcements, and within that there's positive and negative. So the most effective way to get someone to learn is negative punishment, negative punishment. So there's positive and negative punishment in the punishment realm. And negative punishment it's like hitting someone. It's like you're giving something negative to someone and they're taking it in a negative way. Versus positive punishment is taking away something they want. So they're suffering, but you didn't inflict anything on them. You took away something they want. So negative punishment is the most effective in learning. If you give that, it's like, okay, well, you're like, it's survival. You're like, okay, I'm going to learn not to do that. And then after that, it's
but that must cause other problems, right? Yeah, you learn fast, but it's probably not like an effective long-term strategy.
Not a long-term strategy, no.
There you go. That's fear tactics, right? That's like warmongering. That's dictatorship. Of course, we know it works. Right, we know it works.
Yeah,
but it's usually a short-term solution.
But then there's in the reinforcement category, there's negative reinforcement, which is you take away something aversive so that they're happy. So it's like this is a dumb example. There's like a bug in your face and you're just like, ugh, and then you take away the bug for them, and that's negative reinforcement. You could take that to a larger scale, of course. And then positive reinforcement is the best thing. Is like
giving them something you want.
Yeah, but I don't know which one's the most.
Yeah, you know what? What's tough with that one is when you get the thing you want, then it's over. So.
Right. What keeps you going.
Right.
Maybe negative reinforcement is the best one because it's like you'll keep working to make sure the fly doesn't come back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I think is smart is and not or. You combine them, right? You just got to I think we just have to recognize fear is a bigger motivator, which I guess can take us to one of the big topics of the week, which is that I think it was last week that we were talking about the struggles we're going to be going through in the next few months. as we lost a good amount of our revenue, and we were looking at who we were going to have to let go, which is an awful thing to be going through. And then I guess in an odd turn of events, two people ended up resigning, which happened to be the two people that we were thinking of letting go. I think there's a lot to learn. It made me realize that I made a lot of mistakes and I didn't go about it the right way. I'd love to hear your perspective on it, Grace, but let me just share like what I think I could have done better, right? Obviously, I'm trying to give myself some slack because it's the first time I went through this kind of an experience, but there are definitely some takeaways. Number one is remembering how powerful of a motivator fear is. I thought I'm doing everybody a favor by being honest and upfront. I still want that to be a part of our culture. So I don't think I would change the fact that I said this is going to happen. There's going to be some changes and that I'm going to need some time to work it out. I think I'd still be upfront about it. I just think that I would definitely also say as clearly as I can, I don't really know, some version that reassures them, like, don't worry about your jobs just yet. Because what ended up happening in this situation, one of the people I don't necessarily think was the best culture fit. And so, although they've been great, I thought that, it was the right thing for both parties to separate. And the other person, I guess I was surprised in because they seemed so gung ho about trying to make it work. But what they had let me know was just how much anxiety and fear they had about the news in general. And again, that leads you to making these sort of, in my opinion, not necessarily the best decisions when you're in that place. And so they just immediately started looking for a job without talking to me. And I guess my expectation was, which I certainly have adjusted, was that that if they had anxiety, if they had fears, if they were thinking about leaving, that they'd talk to me. But I should have realized just how much people, I mean, what she said that I found crazy interesting was, I thought I was doing you a favor. You know, that was burned into my brain. And I realized, wow, that's what people think. And then I'm like, in that mental state, I guess so, right? So for
Yeah.
me, I really think that as clear as I thought I might have been, I need to be clearer and more emotionally clear about where I think their headspace should be. And I also realized, which I think you were the one who told me this, is that there was a huge fear that they'd get fired that day and just be left sort of out. And I was like, no, man, I'd tell you, I'd give you 2 weeks or whatever, like it would not, why? And I guess because I'm a freelancer, I never really thought about how it goes. Apparently most companies don't even do that. And I don't know. I don't think that's cool. At least if you're gonna say, "Hey, I need you to leave today," like, but we're gonna give you 2 weeks pay to figure your stuff out or something. I don't even know. Maybe I'm going too far. I really don't know anything about this, but I would love to hear your perspective on it, Grace. Like how we did a lot of work to try to figure this out even before a lot of it happened. But like, were you surprised at the resignations, or like, how did you take it all?
I was surprised about one of them, the latter one that you just described. But I feel like we've seen people resign many a time in my 1 year here. And it was just a big deal because it was two in one day, following losing two, I mean, one big client, one and a half big clients. So in that respect, it felt big, but otherwise, I feel like when it first used to happen, I was always like, whoa. But now I feel like I'm training myself to get used to it. I mean, you just have to.
I think the big difference, Grace, is that the people that have left before, which by the way, guys, we're a small company, we're a young company, we actually don't have as much turnover as I was expecting based on what all of my peers and mentors were telling me, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping is a good sign. That means I think people like working here. But we're not really able to compete with big companies. So what happens is people will come here for a year, they'll grit their teeth, they'll learn a lot, and then they leverage that into a really good position, typically, or another great starting position at a big company. So we've had people leave for Nickelodeon. We've had people leave for, what was it, WME agency to be on a desk. That was Hunter. Shout out Hunter. This guy was an amazing project manager, and I knew we wouldn't be able to keep him for long. So I'm just glad for the time that we had with him, and I hope he's doing well. And shout out to Amaris, who went over to A&E. She was my first assistant and just was here in the pandemic and really helped me get going. So, it's interesting because I think and also shout out to Catherine. How can I forget? We had a lovely editor here who realized that she didn't want to edit anymore. She started her own little organizing company. I believe she's also getting married. They're great,
Mhm.
right? So all of those
Yeah,
people, for example, they were leaving under
that's
positive
true.
circumstances, right? I think I found a really great opportunity for my career. I thank you for everything you taught me, and I'm going to take the next step. And in every one of those cases, I was supportive because I couldn't compete. Can't compete with what Viacom is going to give them right now. I'm actually honored that they would use our skills. I remember Amara's telling me in her interview at A&E, she talked about how we use empathy at the company and that they love
Mm.
that. So I'm like, that's great. Now carry
Mhm.
our flag, plant that shit at A&E, and let them know where you learned it from, right? Like our culture is the thing I care about. How we help people learn how to think, learn how to make good choices. That's what we try to do here. So that part, I always felt a respect and like a good about it. Not happy
That's
to see
true.
them go. Bittersweet, right? Not happy to see them go, but like proud that we could have been a part of their starting their career. In
Yeah,
this case, it's like,
It is for sure was
yeah, it
weird.
feels different.
Yeah, it did feel different. Yeah.
It feels like I keep asking, like in those cases, I'm like, well, there's not much I could have done, right? Like I did
Right.
everything that I could, and I had them as long as I could, and we did our best. And this time, I'm like, could I have? What could I have done? So I think that's what that's maybe sort of the difference, but very difficult conversations. And I got to say, these young group of kids, they're just stellar. And I got a lot of respects for how they had the conversation with me at such a young age and so mature and gave me great feedback. And that's how I learned, like, I have to change how I approach bad news at the company because as an entrepreneur and as a former freelancer, bad news is, I don't know, bro, Tuesday at 3 p.m. It's like, not, it's just another normal thing. The amount of
Mm.
times as a freelancer, and also this like another big thing I learned is job security, how much that means to people. And again, I'm realizing, wow, coming from a freelancing perspective, like I never had job security. You know how many jobs got canceled the day before? Do you know how many jobs I got called into? 10 a.m. I get a call. Can you come in now? That was the life. I just got used to that. That was the expectation that was set up. So when bad things happen, when things fell through, no matter how good they seem, man, I remember had an opportunity to go shoot this documentary in Russia that they bailed on us 2 weeks before that production started. And you know what? I think they regret it. They should regret it. We would have done an amazing job. We worked for months preparing that.
Mm.
Yeah, it hurt. And you know what I realized though? Everybody else on that team was hurt way more than me.
Mm.
Like I for longer. And I'm realizing I'm like, oh, that's because like I'm used to that, sadly. And so it was just more like, well, that's what it is. Just being stoic about it. It's just part of the game. And so I'm realizing that I think that I brought that mentality here and was just like, yeah. So when I say that there's bad news, that's all it means. There's just, we have bad news. Things will change. I'll figure it out and I'll get back to you as soon as I have an answer. And I'm realizing what that doesn't make people feel at ease. And so I
Yeah.
realized definitely I'm going to do it differently in the future. What do we do next time, Grace?
It's funny because it's so hard for me to find an answer because my head is literally in such a different place as assistant. My head is not at all in making those kind of decisions.
Where is
It's
your head
more
then? What are you thinking about? Offboarding procedures?
so fun. But just how to get you to your next part of the day, safe and
Interesting.
sound, kind of. And I'm thinking more logistically, and my brain is not in the long-term how as much as yours is. So when you ask me to go there, it's a leap.
I think there's a lot to learn about it from the experience. And I know that for sure. I think I'm going to change my language in the future. And I guess the other thing that I know, but I thought that was interesting in the conversation was recognizing, well, this was inevitable and this is going to happen again. So
Mm.
let me lick my wounds and do it better next time. You know what I mean? So, yes, that was a spicy couple of days this week. And I guess the
And
other
it's a
thing,
short week.
yeah, it is a short week. This is Labor Day week, by the way. I would say the other thing is it I got into that a little bit of a frenzied panic. When was that? That was Wednesday, Thursday,
Yesterday or
yesterday, I guess. basically, I then called everybody at the company. I was terrified that this was going to be some weird domino effect, or Malcolm Gladwell talks in one of his books about how like how suicide catches on, and also how school shootings like copycats and all that stuff. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa! I got to make sure that this isn't like some crazy ripple effect and that everyone's going to freak out. And luckily, those were the only two people, and everybody else feels really good and confident in how we're moving forward. So that was, but it was a scary day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was one of the days where I was like, all right, I'm gonna clear the calendar because I know there's no, yeah, stopping it. We gotta get through that.
And I had to edit
Our
too.
moment.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We're working on these cool Canon spots, and also my mother's 60th this weekend.
Oh yeah. So what does Isabella get?
My
Your mom.
sister-in-law is asking me what I get. You know what? I'm gonna
What?
complain. Is that okay?
About?
My sister-in-law texted me what was I getting my mom for her birthday, and I'm like, well, I made her a video, and I hired a videographer, and I hired an assistant to help with the party. What I said was I was being like nice. I was like, so don't think about like, do something personal. Like I spent easily over $1,000. Like don't try to compare, right? Like don't just do what she'll love anything you get her. You're a great daughter-in-law and my brother and all that. Like just do you. Don't think about me. But her response was actually more something like, and I guess, whatever, maybe she was joking around or whatever. She's like, oh, so like the bartering system is back or something like that. And I took it as like, is it not a real gift? Or like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I think it
Like,
is.
I
It's
mean,
giving ease at the party, which is an
yeah.
experience.
And I don't think this is the thing, guys. And I know that all the creatives out there, especially the editors, totally understand this. Nobody knows what it takes to do our job. Ain't nobody unless you've done it,
Mm.
especially the emotional toll and
Mm.
the critical thinking toll. Yes, it's a slideshow with some videos, but it encompasses 60 years of an incredible woman's story. Do you think that I'm going to treat that lightly? Nah, I gave it the same effort and the same focus that I did with every project. And I did it. I did half of it. I had people help, but like, Jesus, I was in it trying to figure it out. When do I put the cousins? When do I drop my grandfather's folk song that I know is going to wreck everybody? Come on. And what is that section about? Digging for those
Mm.
photos. What a pain in the butt getting photos from people, by the way. Oh my God.
Like,
Puerto Ricans and don't know how to use
oh,
technology. It was miserable. It's literally got to be hundreds of photos in this thing. And I put my heart into it. So I was like, yo, and that don't count for what? That counts for nothing? I got to get her a bracelet, a piece of jewelry or something? That's what means something? But I realized, which is funny because my speech is about how me and my mom have a unique relationship. It's very honest and very open, that like my mom would never care or think twice about. She understands. She knows, right? It's
mhm.
only everybody else that has something to say about my and her relationship. You know what I mean? Of course. So
Of course.
yeah, I don't know. And what they don't know also is I'm going to be giving a speech, and that's also going to, I'm going to, Grace, you know this, right, girl?
Yeah, I've heard it. It's I don't know. It's deep. It's cute and it gets you and you don't expect it and yeah, they're gonna be crying.
Yep. Quick story. I mean, what I like to do with speeches is, I treat it like everything else. Of course, I do puzzle piece sort of, I storytell it. I usually like to pick a theme of sorts, right? Some singular message that I'm gonna sort of reinforce throughout, and that's sort of my style, right? I'm a very focused. I'm a minimalist in my storytelling, and so the theme of this one is that recently my mother asked me if she was a good parent. My family's going through some different struggles, and I think she was just having a moment, feeling asking, did she mess up? Of course, I think every parent probably has that experience at some point. And I know that most people are just looking for comfort, but I know my mom and me, and I thought about it. I didn't answer her right away. I didn't go, "Ma, of course, Ma, you're amazing." Nah, I said, all right, let me think about our childhood for a second, actually. That's what I did. That's how I roll. And that's how we roll together. So the speech is centered around that, and then describing our relationship, and then positing an answer to this question that she asked me a while ago. that's just a little bit about that. But, to me, I'm like, we've never been a big gift giving family, but I was just realizing, I don't know, something about it kind of tilted me a little bit where I was like, I've been working my ass off for this thing for weeks, hiring people, getting people to move around. And like, is it never enough? I mean, for my mother, no, it's never enough, obviously. But
everyone
I'm
else doesn't
trying.
understand.
I'm
Yeah.
trying, man. So yeah, I thought that was something. How old's your ma?
52. She's gonna turn 53 in 2 weeks.
Ooh, that's exciting. So she's also a Libra, right?
Yes. Isn't it Virgo season though?
I don't remember.
Oh, she's a Virgo. I remember she told me we were Sunny and Cookie, and we're both Virgos. So.
I got you because you know what it is? I'm late October. And I forgot that I'm not the very beginning of Scorpio. I'm on the Libra cusp. So actually, you're right. Libra is late September and early October, right? So.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so I guess another interesting thing about my family, my mother is born on September 11th. My father was born on September 10th. And my brother, Nick, was also born on September 11th. My mom gave birth on her birthday to a demon seed, but, it happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My aunt also, oh no, actually my aunt gave birth on her mom's birthday, so that's different. But still cool. Grandma and granddaughter have the same birthday. Yeah, it was my grandma's 90th in Brazil, but it was also my cousin's birthday, which it caused a lot of drama, as it does in a Latin family. Just little things. Literally a thing of, we got her 2 cakes because both cakes, 2 small cakes. Like the cousin, she's 35 or something. And we got her 2 cakes because we wanted to try both, and we bring it to her and we sing happy birthday. And then she says, oh, I'm going to go visit my friends tomorrow. Can I save 1 cake for my friends tomorrow? We'll eat 1 here. And we're all like, the whole family's like, we want to eat both cakes. And it caused a whole drama. There are tears. There's screaming. And my poor dad's girlfriend, who doesn't speak Portuguese, she's like, what is going on?
Honestly, I love it. That is the most Latin fight ever. And you should know, yeah, there should be tears. And I completely disagree with your cousin.
Yeah, we all disagreed. It was terrible. It was a brigadeiro cake and a doce de leite. Which, yeah.
What's the first one?
Brigadeiro is like the classic Brazilian dessert. It's a chocolate truffle. It's basically condensed milk with chocolate. And
I mean, why did you buy? Why did you buy the cakes in the first? Why would you buy 2 cakes if you didn't want to have 2 cakes?
Both.
That's another pro tip.
It's my birthday. I should be able to choose, but.
Nah, bro.
Yeah, she's wrong.
Hilarious. Very fitting. And yet again, there's our food section for the day. I feel like we're always going to talk about food on this thing at some point. It's crazy that, first of all, I think that is 100% the correct fight to have. I know that my family would be throwing a fit, but also I don't think anybody in my family, what gets me about your stories, I'm like, your cousin had to have known that was coming. I don't understand how she is possibly posited that if they got you, you all know how it goes. We all want to try all the flavors. That's how it is. It's always like that in every Latin family. I can't believe she even thought it was a possibility to put up that fight. No, bro, just get a 3rd cake. That's the solution.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you're saying that because editing, as I know I popped off a little bit. Got into a little tiff about all the work I've been doing for my mom's party. I love her. It's worth it. But it's just weird that I don't like the competition and stuff that happens with some of these things, who's in whose favor or whatever. I'm not a big fan of that. That happens sometimes. But one of I think the really great positive things that I really thought about and learned through this process was sort of, I don't know, the importance of recognizing where you came from, your roots. I think a lot about my personality and how that fits into being a CEO. I say this a lot. I know you hear it a lot. That I feel like it's casting. I literally feel like I casted myself in this role because my personality was uniquely fit for it. I do not think it's for everybody. Who wants to sit here and have to fire people and lose half of their business in a matter of 2 days? It's not fun, bro. But I still love my job every day. I love it. The pain is a part of it. I embrace it all, And I was realizing as I was editing this video about my mom is yeah, I get it. I'm looking at a lot of the happier moments in her life, but it made me think I think this woman was just happy. She wanted to be happy. She brought happiness to other people. Okay.
You
And
can see it in her smile.
dude,
That
and
kind of
it's,
smile.
isn't it funny because that's the first thing I noticed about you too, where I was like, dude, your smile I want to keep near me, right?
Oh,
Right. So I was like, I don't know. There's something about putting joy out, I think that is kind of a thing. Putting good energy out there and you're going to receive it, of course. So this woman, just looking at these 60 years, the impact that she's had on all these different people, every environment and every situation, she brought her smile and she wanted people to have a good time. Even when and what I realized is that, and I think this has to come from her because my dad is a little grumpy at times. It's not that she doesn't get angry. It's not that we don't fight. We're Puerto Rican. There's shit gets thrown and smashed, right? I don't know if they're gonna kill me for saying this. My father, I remember when I was a teenager, he renewed the lease on his Mercedes Benz without getting my mom's consent.
oh no.
Oh yeah.
What did he think he was doing?
Being a man, I guess.
Oh no.
I remember the one thing he said before he realized he needed to shut the F up and just take a beating. He's like, I earned this money. It's my money or whatever. My mom was just, oh my God. He comes home. He comes home and I see him like rushing out of the car. I was like, oh, what's going on? He had a big ass bouquet of flowers, and he just runs in. And my mom's just sitting in the kitchen. And he's like, listen, honey, let's talk about this. And he gives her these flowers and she takes these flowers. She's looking at them and he's kind of going on and on trying to appease her. And she's just like, you know something, Frank? You know what I think about you? This is what I think about you. And she just opened up the trash can and she's like, with all her might and force, and just took the flowers, just threw that shit in the trash and slammed it. She's like, that's what I think about you. I was like, Mom and Dad are getting divorced. I ran upstairs and stuff. And dude, obviously
Whoa.
screaming. 30 minutes of dead silence. I'm just like playing on my Game Boy in my bed, like, this is gonna be okay, right? And then my dad comes upstairs and just sits down and he just looks defeated. He's sweating and stuff, and he's like, son, what do I do? I was like 14, dude. I was like, say you're sorry. Yeah, that's all I do. It was obviously very memorable. He got his ass beat that day and learned some things. What's remarkable, so you have those moments, but what's remarkable is we just don't stay mad for long.
My family is that way too. I don't know if it's a Latin thing or is it like a happy gene thing, because they'll yell and scream and then, a few minutes later or the next day they're, sharing coffee. So sweet. And my dad is always like, my dad who grew up in that but moved here and has lived here now more than he's been in Brazil. When he goes back to Brazil, he's always jarred by it. He's like, what happened with all y'all forget the yelling yesterday? What? So
yeah, I think it's like, but I mean, I think that's like the gift. It's like, okay, we can have these moments, we can yell, we can scream, but then at the end of the day, we got to remember, like, we're family and we're going to work it out somehow. But that doesn't mean I don't hear her telling me how many she's going to leave my dad's every other day, but they make it work, and they've been happily married for a long time, and they're adorable still. And they go out on their vacation. They know how to have a good time. And I can see those moments when they're together. I can see like, this is why my mom like fell for my dad,
Oh.
I can see that, he cares about certain things that she values, right? Just like, we're not talking about like, okay, we raised a family together, whatever. I'm talking like personality and, the way that they act around each other and how they treat each other. And I'm like, wow, I can kind of get it. And also just like, he also had to be able to handle her too, right? For all those years. She's the only girl of 6 boys, right? I mean, only girl of 6. She had 5 brothers, bro. It's definitely a thing, but making this video and sort of sitting and looking back really made me appreciate that somehow. I think that did get passed down to me. And even when, whenever I fight with it, first of all, I'm always cognizant of it, where I'm like, this is just a moment. That I'm always aware. This is just anger. Anger is fleeting. Use it if it's valuable, and otherwise wait a day before you do anything. And my parents grew up in the hood. They're my mom is from East New York. My dad is from Bushwick. That's in Brooklyn, for those of you who don't know. Brooklyn, New York. And it was really rough, and so I also think a lot about all the crazy things they saw and how much they did in their generation. I think it's kind of remarkable. Grace, you're the daughter of immigrants, bro. How do you guys have, I love it. The Brazilian fights, like I'm sure it's crazy.
And it's funny because I mean, Portuguese and Japanese are both the softer languages. Like if you compare Portuguese to Spanish, fighting in Portuguese feels more like whining. The voices get really high. They're like, "Porque não, você não quero." Versus when I hear fighting in Spanish, I'm like, "Whoa, that's intense." They're like, "Durr." And then also in Japanese is like a softer language than say Korean or Chinese. I
That's
don't know.
true.
I feel
Korean is mean.
Korean, they're like, it sounds so scary when they're fighting. So the Japanese language is softer. So both languages are softer. So I do think I come from just softer immigrant parents, but low key very harsh. And it's funny because my dad acts more like the Asian parent in the household. He was really strict and was like the one who said, wake up at 7 a.m., do piano every day, and do ballet every day, and you can't eat this, you can't watch that. It was all my dad. My mom was more Brazilian feeling, being like, yeah, sure, chill.
That's so interesting, huh?
It's very interesting. Yeah, makes sense why they both left their country, because I
was about to say, like, if they're both black sheep, kind of,
Yeah.
right, then that's an interesting thing,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, also, shout out to Grace's mom. She helped us out with her comic last year. We cannot end this podcast without addressing just how funny and miserable the experience was to watch the first
The first
podcast.
This is why I realized I prefer to have a script. It tells me exactly what to say. I suck at words. I'm not a word person. That's why I don't like writing. And I realized just how much I say like reading the captions. That was
Don't
terrible.
do that. That'll mess you up, because you know what? I definitely do the same thing. I know I bite my lips, and now everyone's going to stare at it, and I stare at it every time, and I'm like, God. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to stop, of course.
Yeah. We'll learn from it.
Yeah, we'll learn. We'll figure things out. But for sure, what an interesting experience. I'd love to hear anybody else who's making content when they first started putting themselves on camera, especially if you're an introvert, what you had to do to get yourself to keep going. I know for me, it's accountability. Obviously, I have Grace, and honestly, this podcast has been a great outlet for me to discuss somehow what's happening here, right? Because it is true what they say, it's lonely at the top. And so I think there's benefits for me to just articulate what happened this week, because as it's happening, it's going so fast that I don't really have time to look back and think about it. And obviously, I think that's critical for growth. So it was awkward. I hope what you guys see is a little bit more clean, a little bit more fine and snappy. I hope that I know for a fact we're going to get better at it, and we're going to keep going. Nothing's going to stop us anyway. So love it or hate it, we're here, and we're going to continue to take over the world. What is your favorite board game?
Mancala? No. Mancala's the one where there's little holes and you do beads. But no. Board, right? Not card. Monopoly. Because I have fond memories of playing Monopoly. I actually played Horseopoly. I guess I was a horse girl, and my parents got me a horse version of Monopoly where you can buy horses. That was my jam. Yeah, so I just have fond memories, and all the things are different horses, and you can get really specific about the breed, and I was really into that. It has really nothing to do with the game itself. It's kind of just like horses.
I know it works.
Yeah.
It's a fair answer for a fair question.
All right, my question. Magic.
The Gathering?
No. Magicians. It can people are either of the thought that, ooh, let me believe it, it's fun, or it's dumb. Which are you? Or neither?
David Blaine is incredible. That's pretty much my answer. I think that it's craftsmanship, right?
Oh, interesting take. Okay. Yeah, it is.
The skill,
Incredible
yeah,
skill.
right. The skill to misdirect, read a person, train yourself to do some incredible things. I mean, it's remarkable. So I'm a big David Blaine guy who we all, it's fake. That's why I think it's so cool. It's even better that way because
Okay.
it's fake. You're like, he can't levitate. People cannot levitate. How is he levitating in front of my face on the street?
Yeah.
I love that because whatever he did to figure that out and whatever he did to get me to believe it that's incredible to me.
I love that answer. I've heard the answer of I clearly know it's fake, so it creeps me out that they're doing that and deceiving me, and I feel slighted or deceived, So I like the craftsman. I'm of the person. I love it. I wanted to be a magician when I was a kid. I had a kit, not seriously, but yeah. I always think it's cool, but I never heard the craftsmanship perspective. So that's cool.
Yeah, look at his work, watch what he does. I mean, what he's done, the way he's innovated some of the most basic tricks and how he performs it. I think he also, by the way, he's Puerto Rican, so, or I think at least half Puerto Rican. Oh yeah,
Oh.
we got to know. We know
Mm-hmm.
who's in the up and up. So watching, and I'm not just talking about like his stunts, although the stunts are one thing. Listening to how he trained to, I think he was underwater for 10 plus minutes or something is one of his big ones. Obviously, he was in the ice cube standing for days. He walked on water or something like that. There are certain videos and certain times, his podcasts with Joe Rogan are excellent, where he can kind of talk about like, yeah, like there's a lot of science to it. He has a trick now where he coughs up a frog.
Oh, I've seen that. Oh
Okay.
God, I've seen that.
And so you're like, what? And that is just a crazy one, obviously. But he does talk about what he had to do, how he saw a magician from the 20s do something similar, figured out the science, and then trained himself. And basically, if you have, I forgot what he was saying, a certain percentage of, because your stomach is acidic, right?
Yeah.
So you would have to have a certain percentage of water to not have your stomach be acidic enough that the frog could survive for however long he needed it to be. So like he would swallow the frog like an hour or two before he would know he'd have to do the trick.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ew.
And so he, that to me, I'm like, that is impressive. That level of detail,
Yeah.
to time it out, to be specific, to know when you're going to have to do it, and to obviously learn how to control your body in a way to do such incredible feats. Like that's what I mean. There's that side of it. And then I don't know if you've ever seen his ice pick trick. He puts an ice pick through his hand, literally.
Oh yes, I've seen that.
And then he takes it out.
Yeah. And there's no trick to that, right? He just actually does it.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's the thing is, what is the trick? And I'm like, I bet he must have mastered exactly what specific part I've seen him only do it on his hand and on his bicep.
Didn't he pierce it? I'm pretty sure it's like
if he does it wrong, he bleeds.
Right.
But like, that's what I mean, where I'm like, I don't know, you were talking about stretchy skin in the first one, where I'm like, maybe he realized that there's something that he can control. That work to develop that trick, I'm sure took months and months and months and a lot of pain and stress, and it's incredible. Okay. And obviously, he can do all the card stuff. He's got one where the card appears underneath somebody's watch. See, that one actually blows me away the most, because the misdirection, what he probably does as he slides it, he's probably touching you somewhere. Like, you have to not feel it go in, right? And so he must know exactly what to do to you. I mean, I guess it's very much storytelling for me. It's the same way we look at it. He knows exactly what to do to you to get you to not realize that. It's impressive to me. I'm like, I need to know what he does, because that's what we're doing with our stories.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this on for this long with this color and this line, and combination is gonna make you feel this thing. I'm gonna make you look here and slide this thing here. I always tell, there's a story about one of the films I worked on called Concussion, not the one with Will Smith. Went to Sundance, sold, play at the Angelica. In this film, there's a shot where somebody's walking backwards. Like, literally, if you look, the person is like moonwalking in the shot. And I remember when I was at the Sundance party for it, the sound designer was like, hey, did you know there's a shot where somebody's walking backwards? And I was like, yeah, bro. I mean, I'll put it there. And he's like, I must have took me like the 50th watch until I like noticed it. And I was like, well, that's good. That was the point. I was like, I just bet on where your eye would be. which in that scene, I needed her to lift the cup up and take a sip, and she was obviously putting the cup down. So I reversed the shot to get what I needed for whatever I needed it for. But like that was when I realized just how powerful it is. That like, yeah, dude, if I can, and yeah, so you might have the 1 in 1,000 people that see it, but like the odds are great. I've solved the problem for 99% of the people in the theater, and I think that's kind of the way I look at it. So yeah, that's my take on magicians and Mr. David Blaine. All right, well that brings us to another end of Dale and Grace Take Over the World. We're moving forward. We're making it happen. We're restructuring the company and looking towards a great Q4 2022 as we build this bad boy up and take over the world. So thank you again,
Yeah.
Grace. Your presence is always appreciated. Until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things that you know you need to do to help us out so we can continue to bring value to you guys. We do love and appreciate it. We're very happy to be doing what we're doing and enjoy if you guys get anything out of it. So let us know. As always, work hard, be nice,